Welcome to Global Village today, and thank you for joining us. We have two great guests today. We are honored to have Mr. Ron Robinson, Director of Emergency Managing Emergency Office in Medicine Hat, and David Jan. He's ESL teacher of JPS. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure. What sort of things would you like to know? Well, okay. As you said, I'm an ESL teacher. I just need to make a little correction on that. I'm a contractor, so I'm an ESL contractor, and I do teach ESL primarily to foreign workers who come in for various companies. JBS is one of the clients, you could call them, that I work for or work with. And but I have had other, companies that I've taught their employees English. I'm also a master's student. I'm doing a master's right now in intercultural communication, and I'm here.
There you go.
I don't know.
That's
Yeah.
good. So were you from Alberta or?
Originally, I'm from BC. Yeah, I was born in BC. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you were born in BC and then moved to Alberta.
Yes, with a few stops in between. Yes.
Okay, that's not bad. That's a good idea.
Mhm.
So you were born in Vancouver then?
Kamloops, about 3 hours from Vancouver.
Oh, 3 hours from Vancouver. Okay.
Actually, a city that really reminds me of Medicine Hat, or Medicine Hat reminds me of Kamloops.
Well, the same
A lot.
size.
Yeah, very similar in size and composition, and just as a community, they're
Oh,
very similar.
population-wise?
Yeah. Population-wise, yeah.
Okay.
Small college, small university.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's very good. Yeah, Ron, good to see you again.
It's good to be here, Anthony.
Thank you very much. And I think you had a flood last year, and you handled very well. So could you tell us a little bit about the flood of last year and the year before?
Well, sure. The flood of 2013 was, of course, Canada's worst natural disaster in its history. And indeed, it was actually the first time in the province of Alberta's history that a state of emergency was declared by the province. And that was in an effort to try and support High River. 32 communities were impacted, and the estimated damage to the combined communities is in excess of between 5 and 6 billion. And of course, the totals aren't in, and we won't know that for probably a number of years to come. So, as a married man of 2 children and 4 grandchildren living in Medicine Hat for the past 30 plus years, in my estimation, it challenged us in ways that we've never been challenged before. Despite our history, of course, we had we call it a 1 in 100 year return, which is a 1% chance that a flood of this magnitude could ever take place. And we had that occur in 1995. And in 2013, we were actually informed by Alberta Environment that the potential to peak would be 6,000 cubic meters per second. And thus, the story unfolds as to how community came together, arm in arm, neighbor helping neighbor. And it's a remarkable story, quite frankly.
So what your office does then in terms of emergency, just coordinates all that effort, or?
So under the Emergency Management Act, every municipality is required to have a Director of Emergency Management, and that is something that City Council appoints a designated officer for that purpose, of which I have been since actually 2009 in the official capacity of Director, while I was Fire Chief. And as well, the requirement is to have plans and programs in place to support and protect the life safety, incident stabilization, property protection, environment protection, the economy of a community. And so that's my role, is to ensure that we have plans and programs in place, a management structure, build depth within the community. and most importantly, to engage the community in the support of a response and a recovery. A recovery phase, of course, is always the most difficult and protracted phase in which every disaster impacts the community. Try to get to that point where we can declare to the world we're open for business, but that we're looking after those people who were impacted by a disaster, whether it's a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. And that's my role, and to work with internal departments, external departments, memorandum of agreements, mutual aid agreements, resource sharing agreements, whatever it takes under the Act to stabilize the incident and to get your community back on its feet is what is allowed or provided through the Emergency Management Act.
So in other words, more proactive planning stuff for the prevention in the future disasters.
That's the best bang for our buck, is to spend our time in looking at ways in which we can prevent the impact of large-scale disasters and minimize, or we call it mitigate.
Yeah.
So doing engineering studies, look at the vulnerabilities of our community to disasters, dangerous goods transportation by road, rail, air. How do we minimize the impact of those potential hazards on our community, most importantly to the life safety of our responders and to our residents?
Well, I am sure that you did very well last year, so congratulations again. David, what do you think the importance of diversity communities in 21st century economics, in your own opinion?
Okay.
Diverse population or diverse communities from different ethnic groups and diverse population such as the one in Medicine Hat or Ontario or Brooks or Calgary. There are a lot of immigrant population coming nowadays. So having a from cowboys and mainstream to immigrants to other minorities, what do you think advantage being as economic point of view?
Well, I think diversity and economics, those are they are two things that are related, but they tend to be looked at, I think in different realms. I mean, if we want to talk about economics, I think you want to look more at the migration of workers. If we're looking at this specific area of diversity, and I think that's a good question, because it's important to put diversity into context. Diversity, particularly as we witness it in Brooks and in Medicine Hat as well, and in many places in Canada. I mean, the reason that there is such a growing demographic of new Canadians is largely because of globalization and the changing economy. That of course economies around the world are much more highly integrated, and these global macroeconomic forces are creating shifts and changes that are impacting local communities. So that's what I would say would be the connection between diversity and economics. And I guess I think statistically speaking, the need for immigration in Canada economically is very strong. Is a very important need as well.
Thanks, David. I think, and that's what Ron. Immigration is very important for many years to come, because of the booming economics, because of the generation that coming to retire, the baby booming. What's your view in terms of that diversity in 21st century, an advantage?
So from an advantage, specifically utilization of unique cultures that are in our community and right across Canada, if not North America, is understanding credentials and understanding their ability to communicate one with another. I know that there's a program right now, it's a migrant ministry, where a number of like-minded folk help when people come from Guatemala, Mexico, and other areas in South America. They come to Medicine Hat, and they're helping and pick in vegetables for us to enjoy and eat. When they enter the grocery stores and they can't interpret what it is that they're purchasing, how to spend their money wisely, there's advocacy groups that reside in Medicine Hat to support them. Similarly, from an emergency management perspective, when we have a disaster or an incident of scale, how do we communicate best with these folk? Language barriers exist. Their willingness and desire to support in the response phase is something we want to tap into. And, we need them to be part and parcel of a response strategy, and I think this is something that is emerging. Emergency management, even in and of itself, is an emerging field, and so we acknowledge the fact that it has to be diverse in its makeup. And so emergency management acknowledges the need to overcome language barriers. We have an Alberta Emergency Alert program that allows me to tap into mass notification, essentially, that'll interrupt broadcasting. Well, it comes across the bottom of your screen, will interrupt the TV program, and it'll come on the radio, but it comes in English. That's something that we have to strategically ally ourselves so that we're communicating with a multicultural community, and tap into those resources so that they can now communicate with the group that they are perhaps responsible for in a single point of contact.
So that brings me to the question of language barrier, cultural barrier. And that also will apply to for example, the fire department, because they will have the same challenge going to somebody's house who cannot speak the language or cannot be able to communicate. And they have a situation where they might need a very extremely help for the fire department. So that's a challenge that needs probably to look at as Director of Emergency Situation.
Well, I think it's a broad spectrum of emergency services, social services. We have when you talk about the ability to communicate from a fire services perspective, police service, emergency, medical services, mental health. When we think about 2013 flood, we had several areas that were impacted and people who were displaced. Approximately 8,000 people were displaced from their homes, 2,800 properties, not all of whom were English speaking. So how do we communicate that when we talk about what our plan is for reentry and recovery? How do we help them understand what their roles and responsibilities are as it applies to building codes, safety codes? So we really do need to build this advocacy so that there is a one-stop shop for them. And I don't have the answer for it. I just know that there's an issue. We have to communicate collaboratively and identify what the problems are, and then prioritize those and come up with some objectives and strategies to facilitate and bridge those gaps. And it will bode well for our community. And we will end up with much in the future, perhaps positive results.
No, that's well said. I think that is something that if you identify them, probably that's something can be looked at to prioritize and then find a common solution. David, you travel overseas, I understand, and you travel some places, I believe, in South America,
That's
other
right.
places.
Yeah.
So how you see those different cultures as opposed to where you were born in BC or the culture here when you went, for example, in those areas? Because you were the minority going there in language size.
Yes. Well, that's a complex question. I suppose it depends on how you define culture. One of the places that I lived when I traveled overseas, I was living, like as you mentioned, I lived 2 years in Chile, South America, and I also lived a year in Abu Dhabi. Okay. And perhaps I'll talk a little bit about Abu Dhabi, okay, because the contrasts are probably easier to see. Now, of course, you know, the UAE, being a Gulf Arab country, is very economically modern.
Yeah.
So in that sense, is very similar to any modern economy around the world, with you know, roads and malls and, you know, all the different vendors. But you can still see, you know, and this is a question that is often raised in terms of the study of globalization, the study of culture, and how is modernism affecting cultures and whatnot. But you know, you can see in Abu Dhabi that certainly there is, you know, technology and modernism has an impact undoubtedly on the way of life. But at the same time, the core values are still very strongly retained in a place like Abu Dhabi. That's something that stood out to me. Just as an example, for example, how the local population tends to think of family and roles, you know, gender roles, things like that. There are some very clear and strong differences between the UAE and BC in Canada.
So you're talking
Where I'm
about
from.
conservative values as a family.
I mean, it's hard to sort of blanket it as conservative. I suppose they would fit under that as conservative, but I mean, even within the umbrella of conservative values, there's so many different expressions of, you know, if you look at a conservative Canadian family, there's a much stronger tendency towards independence, you know, and individuality, versus if you look at conservative values in Abu Dhabi or even China, or some of the, even South America, as a matter of fact, in Chile, you would see much more of a tendency towards, you know, towards
Family unity.
I'm sorry, the word slips my mind, but towards group-oriented identity and thinking. Yeah.
So you speak Arabic then?
Salam alaikum. That's not a few words.
No, that's good. So you have completed your university and you are on your way taking your masterate. So you know the value of education. So what would you inspire the children, for example, from the high school who are watching the program to stay in school? So that will be something that they can benefit in their future or help themselves. And
well, absolutely. I think education is really important, and I think it has the power to really enrich your thinking and your perspectives, and even on a practical basis, of course, in today's economy, in today's world, it's very difficult to you know, improve your economic situation to get a reasonable job or even a career without education. So of course, I think it's important in many different ways. Yeah.
Ron, I think you're a man of experience and education, and your two children plus your grandkids, and you know the value of education. So whether it's in Medicine Hat or Brooks or southeast of Alberta, those who are watching, what would you inspire them of staying in school? So that's something that's important to them, to their family, as well as the community.
Well, I think that's actually the benefit of education allows each one of us to speak a common language, understand the priorities within a community, and also deal better with expectations management. We can't continue to throw money at everything. We have to better understand what those priorities are, community priorities are. Education really does put us on that common language, that common footing, and allows us to perhaps overcome myths, superstitions, and builds trust within a community. And so education allows us to interact one with another, to better understand our ideologies, the values and the visions that we have for our own community, and that really deep down we each want to see each other succeed, and we can't do that unless we work collaboratively. There's finite number of resources, including water and food. So we've got to do a better job, I think, of communicating it. And the educational institutions, I think, are a great platform upon which to build on that.
So also to compete other world nations' economics.
Absolutely. We had the great privilege in 2008 to bring a little over $50,000 worth of personal protective equipment to Santiago, Chile, Chile firefighters. We went to 11 of their stations, 1 million people, and to discover that they are all volunteer, and they proudly opened up their vehicle scroll doors and showed Storz couplings that were duct taped together, wired together, and whoever was at the door when one set of Kevlar gloves came in, they're the ones that received that. And so when I talked with the administration, asked them what their annual budget was for all 11 stations, he said, and spoke very good English, said $10,000
Wow.
a year. Well, we were contributing in excess of 5 years worth of budget in personal protective equipment alone, which we gave them without any strings attached, and put on a couple of training sessions, went to a couple of calls, and they asked if we would critique them, and a little humbled by that. But just to say to them, they're valued. We had a language barrier, but nonetheless we had an interpreter, and we were able to share knowledge and transfer knowledge and help them overcome some of the life safety issues that they dealt with on an ongoing basis. I think that's really bringing the world community together with really a statement that says we care, we value life, and this is one way to demonstrate that.
No, that's great. And you said that was in Chile.
And that was Santiago, Chile.
Oh, Santiago, Chile. I do believe they speak Spanish.
Spanish.
Chile.
Well, if you ask other Latin Americans, they would say they speak Chilean.
Chilean, that's true. That's very true.
And the reason is they speak
Their
different
accent-
dialect.
Their accent's very.
Or different dialect.
Well, no, it's all Spanish. Just that their accent is sometimes difficult to understand, even for other Spanish speakers.
Because the only nation
So-
that doesn't speak Spanish in the area of South America is the Brazilian, I believe.
That's right. They do Spanish. They do speak Spanish in Chile.
Yeah.
Yes.
The rest, only Brazil, I think they speak Portuguese.
Yes, and I think Guyana
Or
or
Guyana.
Suriname. I think they speak Dutch.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Suriname.
yeah. You're right. There's also Guyana, I believe, and
There's
Suriname.
French Guyana and Dutch
Yeah, French Guyana and Dutch. They speak Suriname. They speak Dutch. The
Mhm.
rest of South and Central, I think they all speak. They speak Spanish. The final question is: how do you find Brooks welcoming when you arrived to Brooks? What was the challenge, for example? Because I think you mentioned last time you like to get involved some of the organizations in town.
Yes. Do you? I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question because I didn't have a strong need to experience it firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
But from my limited, experience with the welcoming of Brooks, it seems like Brooks is a very welcoming community, and pardon me, it's the level of cooperation integration between organizations is quite impressive. So I think there's definitely a value and a vision in Brooks for being an open community and a welcoming community. Absolutely.
Yeah, because what I meant is with your knowledge of experience and qualifications, I think there are some organizations that might be able to benefit your thoughts and your experience based on your experience and qualifications. And I think you've been a couple of the organizations, so getting involved with them, I think the community will benefit from you.
I do think that there's like I said, there is a vision for it, but of course, any organization that wants to promote that welcome would benefit from having additional knowledge and learning, brought to the organization. And I think that's a really important point. One of the areas we could even just talk about, for example, would be the adjustment experience of new Canadians or foreign workers, temporary foreign workers, ones that I teach, and what is the experience that they have, and what are the issues, and why was it important to give attention to that integration and adjustment process.
Yeah.
And of course the question is how, and I think that's where that's where a background in intercultural studies, intercultural communication could come in.
No,
Absolutely.
well said. I think
Yeah.
the immigrants in general, whether they are temporary foreign worker, refugees, or other sponsorship immigrants, I think newcomers, I think there is an opportunity for the community to welcome them and then understand from them also their vision, how they see the integration process. So that is both sides to come together and then probably come up with a solution, which I believe the Brooks area and County of New are doing great, and we hope that that will be the case. My final question, Ron, is last time I was talking to Police Chief Andy, I think he mentioned about a couple challenges that he's having difficult of attracting minorities, whether they are immigrants or First Nations, or also he did mention also women, very difficult to attract them to the department. That's the police department, I believe. In your own personal opinion, how do you think those departments be able to attract minorities, in your own opinion?
I think it's incumbent upon advocacy groups to get the message out, to bridge the communications gap. What are the criteria by which if being a foreign national or someone who's coming from a country who wants to participate in a community in a meaningful way, it's understanding what the credentials are. And I know, we all know that there are doctors right now who are driving cab, so that there are some barriers that exist. So somehow we've got to, I guess, build an advocacy group that can translate what the credentials are, what the educational requirements are, so that when they come to Canada, they're ready. They understand the competitive nature of getting these good quality jobs. Understand that when you come to Canada, you essentially have won the lottery. We have a trustworthy police service.
Yeah.
We have people whose priorities are about life safety and care and compassion within our community.
Yeah.
And so how do we embrace that, and how do we support that transfer of knowledge so that they come prepared?
I think I could agree more. I could not agree more. I think the exposure from the grassroots level, whether they are doctors or some other technocrats from the immigrant population, needs to be exposed to the other departments so they will be able to benefit. And I'm a living testament to say it's true. Canada is a land of opportunity for those hard-working and honest dedication, and they can succeed in life. So we need to embrace them, and we need to attract them so the community will benefit from their experience from their countries, and then embrace them and then make them welcome to the community. I thank you very much for both of you, and especially for your well done job, I think, last year. So we need more Ron, I think, in the future for this department, Alberta. That's my personal opinion. But thank you very much, David, for coming to Global Village, and we wish you every success in the future for your master's degree. If there is anything we can do, don't hesitate to give me a call or call Jeff. We are here to help.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks,
Ahmed.
Thanks. Good to see you.
David, pleasure.
This is the end of Global Village, and we thank you very much for joining us, Global Village. I would like to take the opportunity and thank City of Brooks, County of Newell, Medicine Hat College for supporting Global Village show in many months in the past, and we hope their contribution in the many years to come. This is the end of Global Village. Thank you very much, and God bless you.